know it's really hard? To look at this camera and not at myself. It's hard. So if my eyes go back and forth, sorry. I'll just do this. Welcome back to Coming Clean. This is episode 28. So I am almost at 30 episodes, which I'm super excited about. Most of my episodes are really just me using you as my journal. Not using you, obviously, but like I'm using this as my journal. And if it benefits you in some way, then that's awesome because it's helping me express my thoughts and kind of make sense of my life and my emotions and everything that I'm dealing with that you might be dealing with too. So check out my previous episodes if you haven't already. If you have any requests or suggestions for future episodes, please let me know. And yeah, enjoy this episode that we're going to talk about now. So today I want to talk about something that really bothers me. Like, bothers me meaning it's like my kryptonite, my weakness, honestly, I would say this is one of my biggest fears, and it's not a logical fear, and it doesn't actually it's not like dangerous, like I'm not gonna die from this, but when I am faced with it, it feels like I'm gonna die. So what I'm talking about here is having to say no to people, and that can mean so many different things. What's wrapped up in that is having to disappoint someone, having to let someone down, and also conflict. So if you think maybe that you don't fear saying no, then think about that feeling of having to break up with somebody, or having to tell someone you can't make it to their wedding, or having to tell someone that you don't want to be friends with them anymore. Basically letting anybody down, saying no in any way, is so incredibly difficult for a lot of us, and there's no question why. So first I want to talk about where does it come from, or at least where I think it comes from for me, and maybe it is the same for you. So as a kid, as a child, when we're told no, it usually means one of two things. One, you're in trouble, right? No, don't do that. And then all of a sudden our fight or flight response kicks in. We're afraid, we feel bad, we feel guilty, or we're just scared, because even if all that is your parent telling you no, that's scary. Just being told no, that you're doing something wrong. And then if it goes further and you have some type of punishment, then it obviously would increase the fear that comes with being told no, you're doing something wrong. And then the other part of being told no as a child, as we grow up, when we're so influenced by our surroundings, we're being conditioned, is being told no, we can't have something, or no, we can't do something. So I remember so many times as a kid that I wanted a horse so bad. Like, I didn't ever want anything more in my entire life. And every day was me asking, can I please get a horse? And every day I heard no, because we lived in an apartment and like a horse is a lot of work for a 7-year-old. I didn't understand that. But being told no, whether it's wanting to get a horse, wanting to go to Disney World, wanting to have a sleepover with your best friend, means you're being let down. So now you know what it feels like to have that disappointment within yourself, and most of us don't want to make other people feel like that. So as we grow up and we become adults, we have this deep-rooted fear of, one, disappointing other people, telling them that they can't have something, or that you're not going to be there for something, or you don't want to be there for them, you don't want to be connected with them anymore. And then the other one is conflict, like having to tell someone no, like, no, I don't agree with you, or no, you can't touch me like that, no, you can't talk to me like that. Basically having boundaries. They're really difficult things to do, and there are so many layers to it, but I think if I could put it simply, I think it's those two things. It's one, conflict. We don't want to have a conflict with somebody, whatever that may mean. And then the other one is that we feel bad. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I think that for myself, in a moment, I'm going to next give you a couple of real life examples of when I've had to say no. And I'm going to give you different types so that maybe you can resonate with some of them more than others. And I think it's really helpful to give real life examples when you're trying to get a point across and express something, because then you realize that I'm telling the truth and that I'm actually going through these things. Because let me tell you, like, this is seriously, oh, it's so hard for me. Like, I become paralyzed. Like, my emotions take over when I'm put in this scenario. And it doesn't matter if it's someone that I just met, or it's my mom, or it's my boyfriend, or it's whoever. Like, it's almost all the same thing. Like, I just hate disappointing people. And I'm also going to tell you a kind of funny little story of my childhood, of where I think it comes from, like where it for me stems from, like one specific experience, even though there are multiple. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, I'm paralyzed by this, and I'm afraid of it, and I lost my train of thought because I went into my personal examples, which might as well just go into them, because I think that's the most important thing for me to express personally, selfishly. I want to talk about them because this is something that's been weighing on my mind, and it keeps showing up. Like, I get it, universe. You're trying to give me opportunities to strengthen my ultimate weakness. And that's what happens. When you have a weakness, the universe will provide you with opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to finally learn a lesson. And not only learn a lesson, but you might know the lesson and you just haven't been able to strengthen your muscle yet to be able to say no and not feel bad about it. Like, to be able to draw those lines, or to have those boundaries, or to have those difficult conversations, and then to be able to walk away from it and be like, yeah, like I feel good about that. Like, I am certain about that. Instead of walking away and being like, oh my God, I feel like shit. Like, I feel so bad that I just did that, or I had to do that, or cry, or kind of replay that old story in your head over and over again, because that's really what's happening. We're just addicted to that feeling, or we're just paralyzed by that old thought pattern of basically being afraid to disappoint, causing us to feel worthless or insecure about ourselves, or just that negative self-talk of like, I'm a bad person. The guilt is so strong. It's so strong. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with, I've got a few for you, and they've been happening like one after the other this year, I think, because I'm ready to move past it. So I'm getting a lot of push-ups in this area. Okay, let's start with one that was pretty recent that I made a video about. I started to teach yoga. Okay, so I got my yoga certification, and I had an opportunity. I did my certification hours at a studio in town, and then the owner of the studio offered me a position to actually start teaching there. And I, for many reasons, just kind of jumped into it and said yes. And I didn't really take time to actually feel my feelings and listen to my intuition and decide if this was something that I really wanted to do with my time. I just thought it made sense because I just got my certification, so I should say yes to an opportunity to teach. And all along, I had a little tiny voice inside that said, this didn't feel right. And I didn't know why. It just didn't feel right. And this is really tied in to this whole topic of learning to say no. It's that we almost always know when we have to say no, but we don't often listen to it. And that is your intuition. When you have that little voice, that little tiny feeling inside, or maybe it's big, that says, hey, don't do this. Or, hey, you gotta end this. Or, hey, you've had enough. Do something about it. And then you have to follow it, and that's really scary. So I felt it all along that I have so much I want to focus on. Maybe this isn't the right opportunity for me, but I said yes anyway. So I went in and I taught my first class at the studio, and then I left there feeling like I knew I had to tell her no. I had to tell her that I didn't want this opportunity. And it was probably like 4 or 5 days of me just being in this weird negative space, starting to like beat myself up and tell myself like, you know, you should have told her sooner, you should have listened to your intuition sooner. Like, how does that serve me? Just do it now, right? Stop. If you're doing this, stop beating yourself up for not listening sooner. Stop telling yourself that you should have said something or you should have known sooner. Guess what? You didn't. You didn't. And now you're in this moment. So now you have to do whatever it is that the right thing is to do. And that's the scariest part, is just jumping and doing that, having that conversation. And that's the thing that we avoid the whole time. And that's why I think most of us have a difficult time saying no, and we often say yes because we're just pushing off that inevitable conversation. But the longer you push it off, the more difficult it becomes. So for me, I waited a few days and I brought it up to my boyfriend and we kind of talked about it, and he was like, well, you know, if it doesn't feel right, then just tell her and then just don't do it. Like, it's that simple, right? And it is that simple, but our emotions take over and tell us that it's not, and that it's super, super scary, and that something terrible is going to happen when we tell the person. So I ended up sending an email, you know, telling her that I didn't want the position, and that I just felt inside that it wasn't the right opportunity for me right now. So when we say no, we don't have to be rude. We don't have to be short. We can express ourselves, even if we don't have a concrete answer, which with this and many of our most difficult no's, we don't have a concrete answer. Sometimes it is just saying, this doesn't feel right. And that's when it's really hard, because it's easy to say no to an invitation if you're like, I got something else going on. Then they're like, oh, okay. But if you say, no, I can't come to your birthday party just because it doesn't feel right, like, obviously that's really hard to do. And you can play with your own personal feelings of what feels authentic for you. Maybe you can express a little bit more or a little bit less. Obviously, it's never good to make up lies. Like, you have to deal with and work on telling your truth in the nicest, most compassionate way that you can. So in this scenario of me saying no to this teaching yoga position, I tried my best to express to her why, and that I appreciated her opportunity, and that it was just a no for me. And what comes with this saying no, and in this scenario is a good example, I was so afraid of her response. And this is with anything. This is not just this scenario. This is all of the no's. We are afraid of the response that we're gonna get. We fear two different parts of it, right? It's a complex thing. We fear saying it. We're like, I don't want to say it, I don't want to say it, I don't want to say it. Okay, I said it. And then there's more fear that comes, because we're like, what are they going to say back? What are they going to say back? What are they going to say back? And we don't want to check our email, or we don't want to check our phone, or we don't want to look them in the eye, or whatever it is. We don't want to face it, because that's the truth that we're afraid of, is hearing what's the worst case scenario. You know, in that position, in that case of me saying no to the yoga position, worst case scenario would be that she responds and says, you know, you're a terrible person. I hate you for doing this. How awful of you to say yes and then say no later. Like, what could she have possibly said? And like, she was going to say that. But if she did, that's the worst thing that gets to happen. So you almost have to play out the worst case scenario and make friends with it, so that you don't avoid it and then make it worse than it is. Like, it feels literally, like I said before, it feels like you're going to die when you have to tell someone no. And it gets more extreme, obviously, if you are having to break up with somebody. Like, that's really huge, especially if you have kids, or if you've gotten married, or whatever you have. Having to tell someone no, like, on that level, the stakes are raised and the emotions are increased, and obviously the fear goes up. So I have compassion for you. I understand that this is on a spectrum, but know that the worst case scenario for any of us is that we die. Like, that is the worst case scenario, is death. So if you're not going to die by telling someone no, it's just your ego or your identity that feels like it's going to die. Like, what you know to be true might die. You might be judged. You might be hurting someone's feelings. You might feel like you're going to lose love. And those things are all valid, but they're not something that should hold you back from speaking your truth and living your truth. So keep that in mind next time you have to say no. Another example, and I won't go as deeply into this just because I want to give a few others. An example that this one was so hard for me. So hard. My family recently invited me to go on a trip with them. Free vacation, all-inclusive, to Dominican Republic. And why would I not want to do that, right? It sounded so fun. It still sounds fun. And it's free, so it doesn't cost me any money, and it would be a beautiful vacation, a beautiful time with them. Yet, something in me said that it wasn't the right decision for me right now in my life. And again, in this scenario, I said yes. Right away, I said yes, because I didn't know how to say no. I avoided the no. I pushed it away. And eventually, I had to say it. With this one came a lot of emotional baggage because I had to say no to my mother. And ultimately, that's where most of our fear of disappointment or disappointing others stems from, is we don't want to disappoint our parents. So in this case, I was saying no to something that was so obviously tempting, and any person on the surface would say, duh, why wouldn't you go? I don't have a job that I have to be at. I don't have kids I have to take care of. I wouldn't have to pay for anything. I would be spending time with people that I love. It would be in the sunshine and next to the ocean and all these things. Yes. But the tiny voice inside said, Kylie, you're on a mission. You're trying to build something really big for yourself and for your life. And I don't know why this can't fit into it right now, but you're just supposed to say no. And once I did say no and cried a lot and felt like shit a lot and felt confused, but still knew that intuition was right, I started to make sense of it, and I hope this can help you too. This is probably the most powerful tip for you to remember and to think about when you are saying these difficult no's. And that is, when you say no to something, by saying that no, ooh, I have goosebumps. You might not know why you needed to say it. You might not have a concrete answer for why you needed to say no to this opportunity, or to end this relationship, or to turn down this temptation. But ask yourself a more empowering question. Not why can't I go? Why don't I want this? But instead, who am I becoming by exercising and building the strength within me to be able to say no to something like this, or to be able to face this fear? Who am I becoming? And what maybe am I creating space for that wasn't there before? And you don't know until you do it. You don't know until you break through all that fear and everything you're resisting, and then you say like, I can't go on this trip with you, or I don't want this job, or I no longer can be in this relationship with you. Oh, it feels so bad. It feels, it's just like the worst feeling ever. Yet there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and all of a sudden you have shed a layer of yourself that was holding you back in some way. And you become the next best version of yourself. You have just taken one more step in the direction of becoming a butterfly. Like, you are slowly but surely letting go of your old self, and you are blossoming into and transforming into your new self. And that's the scariest part about transformation and about waking up your consciousness, is that it's painful to have to break through those layers. It's painful to let go of the barriers that we have up to protect ourselves. And I know that you've had to say no to something scary, and that you've had to do something scary, and you are better because of it. And I know that that's not the end of it. I know there's so many more for us both. So it's important to become conscious and aware of, one, why we're afraid, and then two, what are we afraid of, right? And three, the most important, empowering part of all of this is, what's on the other side? What is on the other side of this no? And it might not reveal itself to you right away. It probably won't. It might reveal itself to you a year later, 10 years later, and then you'll see, oh, that's the gift that I got from being strong in that moment and for speaking my truth in that moment. That's when you'll realize. But be patient for that. Be patient for that to reveal itself to you, and just trust that it will. But by listening to your intuition, you strengthen your intuition, and you strengthen your relationship to yourself, because all of a sudden your inner self, your truest, highest version of yourself, says, oh, she's paying attention to me. I'll speak up a little more often. This girl's actually listening, and she's strong enough to follow what I say and what I feel inside. So have strength and keep pushing forward. And if there's something right now in your life that you need to say no to, whatever that may mean, please keep those 3 things in mind, and come back and re-listen to this next time you are faced with that fear. So to kind of come back a little bit, I had said that I was going to tell you where I think mine stemmed from, and I think this will be fun, because if you can be objective and kind of look back on your past, it helps you dissect why you are the way you are, and it can help you kind of unattach and kind of maybe smile or laugh at yourself. Maybe not. Maybe it's very, something really heavy. But if you can find out, oh, that's where that came from, then the grip starts to loosen a little bit. So for me, I think back, like when I'm in a moment of that fear of disappointment, of having to tell someone, what I have to tell them, and then see their response, I think back to a moment when I was very young. I was 6 or 7 years old, which, by the way, is a huge part of our development. At age 7, we become conscious of our consciousness, of ourselves, supposedly. But as a child, regardless of what age, you're so impressionable. So in this experience, and if my mom or my sister listened to this, they both would remember this experience very clearly. And you might have an experience like this that you can remember back to. But this is where I think my fear of disappointment stems from. I was at my grandma's house. We were living there when my parents first divorced. We were staying there for a while. I was there with my mom and my older sister. And my sister was only a few years older than me, so she was 10, I was 7, and she would make me do whatever the heck she wanted me to do, right? Say bad words, do funny, silly things, maybe help me get in trouble, whatever sisters do. And she was upstairs, we were upstairs, my mom was downstairs cleaning out the fridge. Like, I was 6 or 7, and I remember this so vividly. My mom was cleaning out the fridge in the kitchen, and my older sister said to me, "Hey, Kylie, it would be really funny if you go downstairs and tell mommy that I passed out." Yeah, super great, funny idea, Amanda. So what did I do? Like a good little sister, I followed instruction. I ran downstairs and I tapped my mom on the shoulder, and she turned around and I said, Amanda passed out. And the look on her face, I will never forget. Ever, ever, ever. Again, goosebumps. This locked in my brain. That feeling and that fear of like telling someone something that they don't want to hear and then getting that reaction, just the look on her face was enough to like send me into complete fight or flight, because she was in it. She was in fight or flight. So she transferred that energy to me. I saw her in a panic, and it made me feel so guilty and so shameful that I brought this feeling on to my mother, the person I love more than anything in the world. And so when she did that, and then she panicked, of course, because I just told her my sister passed out. She ran upstairs, and then she realized we were joking, and then she sat me down like, Kylie, you can't joke about things like that. Like, don't ever do that again. Like, of course she had to tell me and make sure that I knew. And I was just, it was like, that was trauma for me. And it could have, been somewhat traumatic for her as well. Like, trauma is anything as simple as a facial expression that makes you feel bad. And especially as a kid, we take those things in and we soak them up, and we literally create our neural pathways with experiences like that. So if you can, try to look back on your life and mine it for those experiences. Maybe it's really obvious for you, but finding those things and then allowing yourself to think about them and view them now as an adult is so helpful, because you can help yourself, your inner child, make sense of them. And instead of being like, I'm such a bad person and I feel guilt, and now I'm going to use that guilt and feel it whenever I have to tell somebody no in my adult life, I'm going to say, you know what? I was a little kid. I didn't know any better. And of course my mom was going to panic. And of course she was going to tell me never to do that again. And of course we were both going to be in fight or flight. Like, that makes sense now. And I can remember that memory and kind of giggle about it, because it was an innocent experience that wasn't taken so innocently at the time. And now I can go in and remember that differently. So I hope that helps you with either this topic of disappointing people or fearing anything, really. Anything you fear in your adult life usually stems from something that happened in your childhood. So revisiting those memories and trying to make sense of them and view them and kind of restore them, refile them away with your adult mind is very, very helpful. So I think I'm going to end with one more example, because I kept touching on it and I just want to talk about it, because why not? One main thing that I think is something that almost all of us deal with on some level is to end a relationship. And I did this with my first real relationship ever. I was in a relationship with someone that I met on spring break in Florida. He moved from Florida here to Illinois to live with me, and we were together for 2 years. So it was like head over heels in love, puppy love, like dream love story. We met on the beach on spring break and just like whatever. It was all history after that. So because I was so young and I was wrapped up in that relationship, it became really unhealthy for me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. And so just as many of us find, we're not ready for a relationship. We're not ready for at least that relationship. And I knew I needed to end it simply because I was not conscious, and I was just causing so many issues for him and myself. And so I let it get to a point where I didn't communicate this at all along the way. Again, avoiding. And it finally came to a point where I knew I had to say no. I had to say, this is it. And I did it in a very abrupt, extreme way, where I basically just came to him one day out of the blue and presented him with a plane ticket back to Florida. And it was so unconscious and immature of me to not communicate anything along the way and just dump this on him. And I look back on that and just shake my head. Like, I was so unaware and emotionally unintelligent, but it was all I knew to do. It was the only way I could do it. I had to say no. I had to say, this isn't working. I feel like shit. I'm making you feel like shit, so we gotta end this thing. And that was so painful and one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my entire life up until this point. But because of it, now I can look back 7 years later and I know that I am so much stronger because of doing that. And regardless of whether I was supposed to be with him or not, I'm not right now, and I'm happy with the person I'm becoming. So relationships are so hard because you're intertwined and your lives are intertwined, and they become more intertwined when there's kids involved or marriage involved or whatever, you know, bills and houses and cars and all these things. But ultimately, you owe it to yourself to live an authentic life, and you owe it to the other person for them to be able to live an authentic life as well. So that may be the most difficult one that there is, and I hope you can find the strength within yourself if you need to follow through and do something that's scary. So yeah, man, I could go on and on with personal examples. And if you want more personal examples, because I have a list that in my head I'm just like, please let me know if you want more, because I'll tell you. But, you know, on a daily basis, I think we all have little no's that we need to say. And just to leave you with this, keep this in mind as you are presented with a million things that require a yes or a no. You often might not even realize that they're presenting themselves and that you have a choice. But almost everything you do throughout your day is a choice, but most of it goes on autopilot. So eating certain things, every time you have something in front of you and you're about to put it in your mouth, you have a choice. It's a yes or a no. And if you say no to something, if you say no to cookies or cake or pizza or Portillo's or whatever it is, that no should be coming from a place of confidence and truth and knowing that your intuition is telling you to say no. So you should be proud when you listen, not like, no, I can't have that, I'm on a diet. And then you feel like shit when you say no. It's like you might as well have eaten the thing because you still feel like shit. But it's so easy to say yes because we don't realize we have a choice. And that can be for invitations to birthday parties, like I said, cookouts, graduation parties, graduations, weddings, any family get-together, friend get-together, date, every single thing, every time you have something that you have to respond to, opportunities, work, job opportunities, messages on Facebook or Instagram. Here is my number one tip for you and for me that I'm trying to practice. And that is to pause before responding. Pause. Just notice that you have a decision in front of you. And that awareness is you turning on the light in your brain. That is you amplifying your consciousness to step away, be objective, and notice that you have a choice to make. It might be a small one or it might be a big one, but it's a choice. And creating that space is so important so that you can go on with your life consciously instead of just reacting. And to go a little bit further with that, instead of just pausing, you can actually say, if it's someone who's waiting on a response, because we are so quick to respond, you can actually say, let me get back to you. I'm not sure. Let me take some time to think about this. Can I get back to you on this? Something like that. It's really like, that is like the superpower. That's like the little secret sauce to being able to decide, is that you're actually telling them that you're thinking about it. you're actually carving out the space for you to have that moment of pause to consider what you'd like to say. And that's a really good habit to get into. Really, really good habit to get into. Can I take some time on this? Or I'll get back to you, right? So easier said than done, but I think that one is a really tangible tool. Obviously, it can't be applied to all things, but most of the things we face on a daily basis, that can apply. So I hope that helps you. Aside from that, I don't know what else to tell you other than good luck because I feel myself getting stronger, and I know that you will too. And this is a skill just like anything else, that the more you work on it, the more you strengthen it, the better you're going to feel about it. The more experiences you'll have under your belt, and the more confidence you'll have in your ability to draw these lines and to create the boundaries and to listen to your intuition when it whispers the truth in your ear. So on that note, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you more than you know, and I really enjoy and appreciate your feedback. So if you want to comment below, if you're on YouTube, or just simply sending me a message anywhere and letting me know that you listened. If you think someone could benefit from this podcast episode, please share it with them. I would love that, and they would love that too. And aside from that, give it a thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, and go ahead and check out all my previous podcast episodes. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Kylie M. Lewis, and I will talk to you all next time on Coming Clean.